Hello, everyone, and welcome to another, I was going to say Atomic Mass Transmissions Live because that's not what we do, Ministravaganza, extraordinary hobby stream. Today, you'll notice that I'm on the other side of the table. If you normally tune in and watch our hobby streams, there's a reason for that. This is the famous Summer.
Hello.
Who's so often working so diligently behind the camera, and she's worked really tirelessly along with Tony and Luke to make sure that all of Ministravaganza has been going off without a hitch, but a long time ago, she promised me that at some point she would let me bring her on this side of the camera and teach her how to paint.
You did not forget.
Yeah, so because Ministravaganza is all about embracing the hobby, and we love really doing kind of introductory stuff as well as all of the advanced hobby stuff that we do, we thought it'd be really fun to, instead of having me paint the new Captain America today, which we talked about during the MCP panel this morning, instead we would bring Summer in and have her paint her second miniature, like really officially,
Yep.
For the very first time. So my role here is just kind of to be an advisor to help out. I'm going to walk her through some of the colors and mentor her through the process. She's going to ask a lot of questions, and it's just going to be kind of a nice, fun time for us to hang out. I got the chat up. We're gonna answer questions as much as we can. And we're just going to kind of like walk through the process for somebody who's brand new. Because for a lot of us who've been doing this a long time, you kind of forget about what those simple questions are or what those initial questions can be. And Summer's going to have them all, and we're going to answer them all. And by the end of it, we're going to give her the confidence and the support she needs to be able to go out and start painting a bunch more miniatures. Because she's painting again tonight during the hobby hang. So let's go ahead and kick things off. Jump on to the star of the show, Captain America.
I'm going to have so many questions.
So many questions. That's okay, because that's what we're here for. So our goal here is that we're gonna knock out a very classic looking cap. So tonight you can pull out all the different colors that you want. Paint your miniature however you're looking. But we're just gonna stick to the red, white, and blue. The first big things are gonna be your brushes. So
I have 3.
You have 3. We're gonna work on, for the most part, we're mostly gonna use this 2.
Okay.
The little ones we'll use when you go into some of the smaller detail. But by and large, you only need like the normal sized kind of 2 or a 3, depending on your comfort level, brush. You're holding it perfect, so you're just gonna hold it kind of like how you would hold a writing instrument. Keep it kind of loose. You can even go back a little bit on the brush if you feel like that gives you more control. You don't have to squeeze super hard. You can keep it kind of loose.
Cool.
But you're like, if you have any questions as you go through, just feel free to ask, and we'll kind of go from there. Cool. So in order to make this process really successful and fairly straightforward, we use the speed paints on stream a lot, and I know we've talked about these. So these are going to give you your shade and your base coat all in one go, right?
Okay.
So this is going to speed things up just to get that initial Captain America painted. They're pretty forgiving. So I'm just going to squeeze out a bunch in this palette, maybe even a little bit more. So let's talk a little bit about like brush control and strokes, right? Yes. So go ahead and load up your paintbrush. The one thing you want to think about when you're doing putting paint on the brush is that you don't want your paint to run into the ferrule, which is the metal bit here. So try to only get the brush about halfway in.
Okay. And you said just go ahead and glob it on, right?
Yeah, just load it up with a nice amount. And then from there, if you want to do a couple of practice strokes on this little palette, you can just kind of get a feel for how the paint's going to flow. If we were painting with normal paints, like not speed paints, you would notice that the paint would be a bit thicker. You can see how it kind of like runs on. And that's exactly what we want. So you don't have to be afraid about putting a little too much on. You're kind of going to get to slop this on pretty well.
Okay.
And this is what makes them so great for kind of a beginner painter, because they're pretty easygoing in terms of how those things go. So just go ahead and grab the blue, and you're going to put it all over where his suit is blue. So that's going to be all the pants down to his big floopy boots.
Okay.
And then the top of the torso that's not striped up to the gloves.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and hit his whole head. If you get some on his face, that's okay, because we're not going to use speed paints for that. And don't worry about the wings on his head. We can cover those too.
Alrighty then. Do I paint the textured chest part of the suit too with the blue?
So you're going to hit all that chainmail.
Okay.
Or that fish scale kind of armor that he has on his top torso. Like I said, the big things you want to avoid are going to be the gloves and the boots. And then, of course, if you can not hit the shield as well, that'll make things a little easier.
A little easier.
But we can always go back and clean up any mistakes. And that's one of the biggest things to think about when you're going through and doing painting, is that we say this all the time, and you've heard it plenty, but now you're going to experience it.
Yes.
Miniatures painting is just correcting one's mistakes.
Okay.
So the last thing that you want to do in order to see success is to get really freaked out about doing it right.
Okay.
Because no one ever does it right. Like I glot paint on all the time, and there's many ways to fix your mistakes. So just kind of like do that, and you're doing great with the brush control right now. So does that feel like really natural to you?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm not doing anything I think out of my comfort zone. It feels pretty good. The paint's going where I want it, so that's always a positive.
Perfect. And then the other thing too is that your brush will hold a decent amount of paint.
I've noticed, yeah.
But with speed paint specifically, you might want to go back and grab a bit more because you want to make sure that you're kind of getting the same amount coming off the brush as much as possible. And I see that you've picked up like the twisting technique. If your brush, you see kind of how the tip, because the wash is, it's basically more watered down than a normal paint, your bristles might start to spread on you. If that starts to cause you problems, you can use this palette here or use your thumb or whatever, and all you want to do is drag and twist.
Let's do on the thumb. I see you and Dallas do it all the time.
So just drag it across and twist and kind of pull up as you do it. Here,
I'll give me a pointer.
so like you can just kind of do this.
Okay.
And do the little twist, and that should pull the bristles back together a little bit more. And if that doesn't work, you can clean the brush and then go ahead and do that again as well.
I think I kind of put them back together, so I'm going to go with that. I think I got his pants too. So
yeah,
pants look good. Let's go ahead and move on to his chest.
Yep, so you're going to do the upper torso, kind of where you got the stripe lines on the center. Those are going to be red and white, so we want to try to avoid getting those with any blue on them. And then we'll move on to that stuff next.
Wonderful.
And one of the things that you'll notice with the speed paint, especially here, is because it flows really well, it's going to take to that fish scale kind of detail really, really well. And so you want the paint to stretch properly across it. So if it looks like it's not getting a solid base coat, that's the point of this paint.
Okay.
But it looks like you've already kind of got that part all figured out pretty well.
Do I do his head as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. His little
wonderful.
Cap,
his
little
little
skull cap will be over there.
Got a paint cap's cap.
That's right. And again, you don't have to worry about getting it on the face or in the eyes, because we're going to use a standard hobby paint to do that.
Okay.
And that will cover the blue pretty well. Okie dokie.
Thought you were coming for me, Tony.
Oh, everybody's breaking everything. Oh my goodness. All right. Maybe this one will work better. How's that, Tony? Is that better? Why did the NYC apartment train get taken off the gallery in the AMG? I don't know. I doubt Summer knows either, so we'll have to look into that.
I will have to look into that.
That sounds like a not intentional thing.
That sounds like it shouldn't have happened, yeah. That sounds like something I will look into.
Now, if at any point you feel like the bigger brush is proving difficult for you to get into the areas like the upper part of his shoulder or anything like that, you can always feel free to switch to the size 1 brushes.
Okay.
The smaller the brush, sort of the more control you'll have.
Yep.
As you start to learn that brush control, which you're going to develop over time. So you should never be afraid to go to the smaller brush. But because painting is fixing one's mistakes, you're gonna improve your speed, and you're going to be able to do a lot more by practicing with the bigger brush as well. So, don't be afraid of the larger brush, but use the smaller brush whenever you feel comfortable using it. It's kind of the big thing.
Okay. Try not to bump that A. I know that'll be hard to cover up with the white.
We're going to use a little trick to make the white coverage a bit better, so I don't think you have to worry about it too much. And part of that is kind of color choice. So we're going to make our whites have a little bit of blue in them, which will not only make them look good next to the blue uniform, but also means like if you happen to get any blue over areas that we want white, that blue will just kind of prove to be a better undertone for it.
Wonderful.
So you can kind of adjust things based on your color choices and how you build up your colors and stuff. And that comes with practice and kind of like mistakes and all the things that we do in order to learn skills and get better at them.
All right, for this tricky arm underneath the shields.
So you can switch to the smaller brush if you want to.
Okay, I think I might try that out. I feel like that might get me where I need to go.
Sure.
And that was the smaller one. That's the one?
Yeah,
I'm
they're
assuming?
both, I think they're both ones.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both ones. You just have two options. So one thing about like as you work with your brushes and stuff, don't ever leave the brush like flat in the thing because you'll ruin your tip.
Yep.
And it'll just make your brush not last as long. So just give the brush a rinse and then you can twist out the tip and then just throw it wherever you're going to throw it, either in the cup or whatever.
Okay.
And that will just make sure that you don't spend a fortune on buying new brushes as they start to like spread out. And then
I got blue everywhere that it needs. Oh, no, the whole inside of his leg.
that's all right.
Just
You
missing.
just go back and hit that.
This did dry very, very fast, though.
Yeah, so every paint's going to have a different drying time. The speed paints do have a pretty quick working time for how thin they are.
Okay.
And that's just something that you'll kind of learn per paint. There's a lot of different ways to manipulate that, but we're not going to really worry about it for right now because...
Are there specific like times that you would want kind of thinner paints? Like these will work the best with?
Yeah, so typically there's a lot of different ways to thin your paint. Any paint that comes out of the pot directly, that's like a normal acrylic hobby paint, you always want to add a little bit of water to just to loosen the paint. Because it's just, it's always going to be a little too thick. And adding that little bit of like wetness to it allows it to flow better off of the paintbrush. It gives you more control actually. It's a bit of an art form in terms of learning how much additional wetness to add to a paint because every paint is going to be different.
Okay.
And that's why you'll see Dallas and I use our thumbs a lot or test it on a palette or things like that. It's to kind of understand how the paint is flowing. And the biggest thing is that you can always thin a thick paint, but you can never thick a thin paint.
Okay.
So you want to take it slowly in stages. It's kind of like salting a dish, right?
Yep.
If you throw a ton of salt in there and get it too salty, you're kind of in trouble.
Yep.
But you can always add a little bit more as you go. So make it to taste. Paints are the same kind of way.
I feel pretty good about that blue.
I think that's looking fantastic.
It's got...
Great.
Cool.
All right, so we're going to move on to our red.
I'm going to wash this off and not leave it in the water because that'll mess up the bristles.
No, it's okay. You can. It's not like they destroy themselves instantly on contact, but it's good. It's good to form good habits, right?
Yes,
and that's one of the big things that, I used to burn through brushes so quickly because I just didn't know quite how to take care of them, and I think that's one of the big things that it's important to know about. All right, so we're going to use this Slaughter Red Speed Paint. You can stick with the size 1 if you're feeling good about it. These areas are going to be big enough that I think you can also go to the size 2, but do what's comfortable for you at this point. So this is going to be the boots and the gloves.
Okay, and then the various...
And then we're going to talk about how you want to do the stripes along the tummy.
Okay.
For the tummy, we're definitely going to switch to the size 1 brush because it's smaller.
Yep.
If you want to continue to work kind of with the size 2 brush, you have a lot of, I think you have a lot of area to work with, so it's going to be okay. This paint is going to apply pretty much exactly the same as the blue. So again, you're just going to kind of like slop it on fairly heavily, right? Like just like you did with the blue, you did a great job there. And that's going to get you the same result. You're going to see that paint stretch like it's supposed to and is designed to across the area that you're painting. It's going to pool darker into the recesses.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot lighter over the highlight areas. And that's exactly what you want.
And I'm noticing that with the blue.
Yeah. Now, if we were doing non-speed paints, if we were doing like a more traditional base coat shade highlight, which we've also done on stream and you've seen before, you would be looking to make your paint coverage very smooth. Okay. So like the different tones and values that you're getting from that speed paint, you would try not to do with a normal paint. But this technique of painting, you're doing exactly what you want. That's okay. Don't worry about the rocks.
Okay.
The rocks are easy.
My rocks are red.
The blue that she was using is Magic Blue from the Army Painter Speed Paint line.
Which I actually have a set of at home that I need to break into. I just have been busy, but now that I have a little bit of experience with them, I'm not so intimidated. So
yeah, and so one of the brilliant thing about speed paints and high contrast painting in general, you don't need speed paints to do it. It's just a technique that's in a bottle. So you can take, because it's great to have like something that you can just squeeze out onto your palette and go. But there's gonna be a lot of times where you're gonna be like, well, I want this color, and this color doesn't exist. You can make your own high contrast speed paint style paints out of any color. It just requires a little bit of mixing medium and a little bit of water, and that's something that you can learn along the way. So
what's a mixing medium?
So mixing medium, all paints are pigments, right?
Okay.
If you ever use some of like those really old school craft paints in school that were like a powder, and then they would add like water to them to create a paint, all paint is a pigment. And then what that pigment has done is it's suspended in a medium.
Okay.
And the medium is what makes it flow, what makes it liquid, and then as the medium dries, it's what allows the paint to adhere to the miniature or to the surface. Mixing medium, artist medium, flow aid, all that stuff, it's just that medium, that suspension medium that the pigments are in. So what happens is if you add a lot of water, the paint will eventually start to separate and it just won't stick as well because it doesn't have, you dilute the medium to a point that it's like, if you took Elmer's white glue and you kept adding water to it, eventually it wouldn't glue anything, right? So the same idea with paint. So instead what you can do when you want to really thin out a paint is you can use a medium, an artist medium or a mixing medium or a glaze medium, and that will allow you to really extend the paint way further without having the pigments kind of like stop sticking, right?
Okay.
So it adds that binder that you really need to. One of the things that Chad is mentioning that I probably should kind of discuss with you, which is totally cool. No, keep going. You're doing it right. But this is going to also help with your brush control, is that if you find yourself struggling to like maintain your stability on your one hand, if you put your pinkies together, you will naturally like steady yourself, or if you balance your pinky on your painting hand to whatever's there.
Okay.
So you've already got really great posture with the elbows on the table, right? So you're right there.
I've learned from
You've learned from Dallas. But yeah, if you take your pinky and you put it either here, or you can balance it against your finger, wherever you need to go to get that brush together. Once you put that pinky out and you stabilize it, now this hand becomes way more stable.
More stable.
And you can even try it. Like you do this, your hand's a little wobbly, you do this. So if you get in really tight, you can use that pinky.
Okay. Thanks, Chat. Oh, it's tricky to get in between these straps. But you know what? We're going to probably do like a brown on these straps anyway,
you'll be safe.
So...
Don't worry. Slop it over.
Okay,
We'll fix it later.
All right. Well, that red looks pretty good to me, I think.
Great. Okay.
Oh, I missed a part, but that's okay.
Fine.
We'll get it later.
Touch it up.
Yep.
Yeah, we can come back to it once it's dried. We can do it now. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about brush techniques for getting into these tighter spaces.
Okay. Yep.
Because we're going to do those tummy lines.
Yep.
So obviously, it's okay if you slip a little bit left or right. We can always fix it. One of the big tricks when you're doing any like tight detail, or you're trying to do something like really fine and precise, if you ever try to draw a straight line, it's really hard, right? Because you have like a natural tremor and a little wobble. And you think about it too much. One of the brilliant things about painting miniatures is that the detail's all there for you.
Yep.
Right? So you don't have to create it from nothing. You don't have to draw the line. You just kind of have to like follow the line.
Yep.
So one of the things you can do is on those tummy lines, instead of trying to paint straight up and down and maintain a really steady hand, is the paint will actually flow naturally through capillary action. So it wants to run off the brush and run onto the miniature.
Okay.
It wants to do that work for you. And what that means is that you can take your brush, and here I'll give you a little bit of an example here. So you can take your brush and you can actually just do little dots. And you can
it
see how
stippling?
straight. It's like stippling.
Okay.
Stippling is actually a technique where you're trying to like impart texture. Here I'm just trying to make a perfectly like nice line.
Okay.
So if I was to like do the brush, you see how my weight of my line gets really thick and then it kind of thins out. And that naturally happens just because of the way you put pressure on the brush as you draw your hand. And so that can make, doing tight detail like that really hard. But if I just go to a really fine touch, the paint flows naturally. I'm not dragging it, right? I'm literally just doing a lot of little dots. But because of capillary action, it runs off the brush and then it runs together. It wants to tighten in.
Wants to meet up.
And so that can really help you with these tighter spaces and these finer details because you're not going to get that weird line weight.
Yeah.
So it literally is just like you just kind of tap
Okay.
and put more paint on the brush and then you tap again. It's perfect for like areas like that midsection. Because you can just kind of like tap in the paint, and then if you miss some areas, you just go back in and tap it in again.
Okay.
And it doesn't require a lot of fine motor control with like, you don't have to fight your natural tendency to do big swoopy lines and stuff.
Yeah.
And the way the weight of the brush looks.
Well, let's see. Okay. Do I need to start with a particular color in a particular place?
So what we're going to do is that if you see he's got like a bunch of segments around his torso. So we're going to start, let's see. It's kind of dealer's choice on how you start it because this guy has two right in his middle. But just pick one of those two center lines. And then make one of them red, then the next one leave alone, then make the next one red. Cool. And just go around.
Cool.
Is that red on your brush? Or
no, it's blue.
You want red?
Do we want to do red?
Because we're going to do
red and white. It's not red and blue. Oh my goodness, I almost messed up.
So go ahead and use this one.
Yeah, I think I like yours because it's nice and thin and pointy.
You're going to want to use this one. And then again, you can try the tap. You can try painting in a little bit. You can do a combination of both.
I think I want to try tap.
Just
I think let's
go crazy.
That looked like that was going to be a really good technique for this. Maybe a little mixture of both I'm using.
Yeah, that's fine. And that's what you should do, right? Like there's no one way to approach an area of painting, but you want to have a bunch of different tools in the toolbox, right?
Yep.
Just like as Dallas likes to use tool analogies, you need a screwdriver and a hammer and a socket wrench. Each of those is going to do their own thing.
Yep.
Don't try to use one for the other, right?
Right. So it looks like he has a bigger section, right? That's all just one. That little bigger side of his belly there.
There's if you look, there's a really fine line along the side, but you can just make that section really big.
Okay.
So what I would do is probably like depending on how your progression goes. So where did we start with the red?
We started.
So you started here with the red. So then it would be red, white, then do that big section red, and do the section next to it white, and then red, white, cool. And then that will make his other side. So his two sides, his two big sides will be red.
Wonderful.
And that's perfectly fine.
Cool. That should be good.
The mighty summer is painting, chat, for those who are just jumping in.
Hello, chat.
I know. Finally in front of the camera.
Surprise!
Doing the work. Putting it in there.
I know. Now I know what I'm putting you guys through when I'm telling you to hurry up and be your best self always.
That's right. All right, well, you do that. I'm going to mix up a little bit of white so that you can jump into that next. And I'm just going to talk while you work.
Wonderful.
To kind of explain a little bit of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So when you're going to go in and paint white or black, there's tricks. And you've heard us say this like 5,000 times, but now you're going to experience it.
Yep.
So there's no such thing as true white. And there's no such thing as true black.
Yep.
Black is defined by its undertones and its highlights, basically. And white is defined by its shadows. So the way we approach that easily in painting is that I'm going to take some Miskatonic gray from scale, and I'm going to take some pure white.
Okay.
And I'm going to mix those two together And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an off-white.
Okay.
Now, the off-white is going to cover better, which is going to be great. Did you finish all the red?
I
did. My gosh, you're so fast. I'm slow. I'm slowing you down. So we're going to create an off-white. And you could choose any combination of colors for this.
Okay.
One of my favorites is to just use Arctic Blue, which is a blue-white already.
Okay.
I couldn't find that paint, so we're going to use Miskatonic Gray and a little bit of white, but it's going to work the same way. So when you're mixing paints, you just kind of you just freehand it until you like it.
Okay.
We want this to be a little more white than gray. So I'm just kind of playing with it. And that should be pretty good for our start. I'm going to take a little bit of, and this is where we talked about thinning the paint down. A little bit of water. Thin it out a little bit. And then what you're looking for when you thin your paint, so load up the brush, and then you can use the thumb or whatever, and just kind of give a quick paint. So you see the paint's flowing really nicely off the brush. It's not super separated, so I know I didn't thin it too much. And I'm getting pretty good coverage for it being a white and a gray. So this feels really good to me.
Okay.
You may, as you continue to paint more, find that you like the paint a little thinner.
Okay.
Typically, I wouldn't suggest having the paint be a little thicker, but hey, I break rules all the time, and that's totally fine. So go ahead and grab that, and then as you load up the brush, you can go ahead and do the little twist technique, and that'll help keep your tip really tight for this nice little detail. Yeah.
Oh, I got a stray hair. Stray.
Oh, and then go ahead and tap and paint technique, whatever feels comfortable. Now, this is not going to react the same as the speed paints. Okay. So I didn't make it into a wash because a white wash is really difficult to pull off. So instead what you're looking for is you're looking for a nice, even coat, and that may take 2 or 3 passes.
Okay.
So if it doesn't look like it's covering right away, don't worry about it. Just move on and go to the next one once you feel like you've got paint on the whole area.
Wonderful.
Similar to painting a wall or anything like that.
I wish I did that so much recently.
It's what happens when you move into a new house. You do a lot of house stuff.
I know. Who would have known?
And then once you finish with the midsection, you can go ahead and use the same white on the A on his head and the star on his chest.
Okay, what about his wings?
You can also go in and hit the wings with it too. Yep, because all those areas are going to be the same white. And then I'm going to find a brown. But maybe we'll do a couple different techniques just to kind of show how certain things work. So,
tricky little angle.
I know. Okay, let's see. You can always feel free, just because you're not confined to the stand. You can pull them off if you need to get in there.
All right.
Normally, when you're not doing it on camera, you have the freedom to turn them around and do all this
stuff. Get them upside down. Yep. Cover this. Oh, I didn't get the little part. The little.
That's okay. You can always go back with blue. So mostly just just get the A nice and covered, and then we can easily go back and touch up with blue.
Actually, I did like the pinky technique. That was giving me some good leverage. So, but now I'm just doing it awkwardly.
You'll find it.
I know,
and again,
right? It felt comfortable in a position. Now I just got to find that position again.
Yeah. You're playing an extra hard mode because you're stuck on camera. Normally, you can really move and find your favorite spot.
Yeah.
Tony might also have this table a little high for you.
All right, so we got the A, I got his wings.
How about the star?
I did not get the star.
Let's get the star.
Definitely needs to get some white on that star. Gotta learn good ways to get paint on this without pulling up these bracelets.
Sometimes your paintbrush will just have a stray hair, and like any other stray hair, you just gotta clip it off.
Oh shoot. Okay, yeah. Well, got a little bit of white on my blue, but we go back and fix that. No biggie.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things you can do, if your white is still kind of wet, is you can come in with a slightly damp brush.
Oh, okay. Spread it around a little bit.
And you can
get it out of that blue.
Pull it off. So this is part of the reason why we always keep that extra brush along with us. Mm-hmm. Is that it allows you to very quickly go in and erase your mistakes.
Wonderful.
Even if your paint is like half dry, if you work it enough, like with a damp brush, you can actually pull that paint off without hurting the paint underneath it.
Okay, that's good to know. I foresee lots of little mistakes, but I'll get it.
That's how it happens. That's how it works. You always get lots of little mistakes. Okay, perfect. So are we feeling good on the white?
I think so.
I love how you're admiring your work on the TV.
I am.
Like,
I'm
just
really
like,
proud.
Look at this. You should be. You're doing great. Like,
Thank you.
This is moving perfectly along. Okay, we're gonna do the belt next.
Okay.
So just as belt,
we're gonna
use this brown, and you're just gonna go across the whole belt and just paint it brown really quick.
Okay.
And the reason we're gonna do this is because I want to do one area where we talked about the speed paints.
Yep.
We're doing the white, which is kind of like traditional, but we're not gonna wash it or anything.
Okay.
This we're gonna do your base coat of brown. So you're gonna make the belt nice and solidly brown.
Okay.
Then we're gonna go in with a brown wash. We're gonna shade it really quick, and then we're gonna be done with it.
Wonderful.
And it's gonna look really nice, like this worn, worked leather.
Get my little happy mistake brush and wash this brown off of here. Actually, that's almost put my eyeball out there. All right, we can throw some paint on that.
Yeah, you can always add a little bit more blue in.
Yep.
As well. So you're doing pretty good. Let's get this out of your
Thank
way.
you. I know. Okay. Got to figure out how to properly roll it in my hand. All right. It's got little belt loops. I want to go over those too.
We can go back. Well, so you have a couple of options. You can leave them brown, which is perfectly acceptable. We can go back over them with a blue so that it looks like an actual belt loop. Half the time, I don't worry about the belt loops because you won't notice them. Half the time, I do the belt loops. Purely personal choice. But super easy to adjust if you need to.
Okay, wonderful. Depending on how much time we have, I might color them in blue.
There you go. Okay, so the belt's all nice and solidly covered. Looking great, looking awesome. Let's go ahead and do the face really quick.
Yeah.
So we're going to use this Harvester Flesh because it should work fine. Personally, I like a Resurrection Flesh a bit more from scale, but I don't know where it is. So we're going to use this Harvester Flesh. And we'll probably add a little bit of color to it because it's pretty light. I want to get more color into it. Oh gosh, that'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Everything's great.
All right, there we go. That's pretty nice. Okay, so go ahead and use this flesh tone here.
Okay.
And all you're gonna do is just hit the face. And so Cap's got this weird like nose bridge thing. So his nose, the bottom of his nose sticks out right there. Yep. So the bottom of his nose is going to stick out, and then it kind of goes around his mouth and down his sides. And this might...
A little bit too much paint, I think, possibly.
Just go ahead and you can always just rinse it out. I think what's happening is that you have a little bit too much water in there.
Okay.
So if you want to grab a paper towel, that'll help.
Let's see if I can reach it with my...
I bet you can.
You think
Maybe
so?
Tony can help.
I think I got it.
You got this. Nailed it.
Boom,
Perfect.
baby.
So yeah, so tear off a paper towel. So after you rinse out the brush, you can always just twist and pull across.
So when you're twisting, it doesn't need to just stay twisting in one direction. You can
go either way.
Okay, okay.
I just naturally turn it this way because it feels you know.
Oh, I thought I saw you going like.
Push it closer to the palette so everybody can see.
Whoop. How about right there? Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. So when you're doing the twist, I like to go this way,
Okay.
like inwards, just because it feels really natural. But if you
Okay.
want to roll this way, you could.
Maybe that's why I'm not having an easy time.
Yeah, so
doing
you
it,
just
'cause I
kind of
think
come in
doing it
this way. So what happens is, let's just say our brush is kind of like flat. So you see how it's kind of like ugly? Mm-hmm. We just pull and we twist.
Okay.
And it's really light. You know, you're not pushing really hard because I'm not trying to paint anything. But as you just pull it across, it naturally pulls all the bristles back together and gives you that nice solid tip. And you can do the same thing when you load your paintbrush. So what you'll often see is, and you can use the paper towel instead of your finger for this, you can load up the brush and then you can kind of like do a quick little like tip, and that'll tell you if everything's like really good to go, and it'll stop you from having too much brush or too much paint on your brush from time as well.
Too much brush.
Too much brush. That's right. But yeah, getting really good at that, at kind of doing that, and that's a habit you want to get into. You know, if you watch, and I know you see my ugly mug all the time on painting, every time that I go in and clean the brush, I always do that twist.
Yep.
To recondition the brush, and that helps those bristles stay together. It keeps your point really nice.
Yeah.
So it's a very good habit to get into.
I'm just gonna put a little bit of something on his eyes to make him kind of.
Yep. So just go ahead and do use your pinkies, stable in, right? Find your good point, and then just go in and just do the dot technique because you want to try to avoid getting around that blue. If you do a little bit, that's fine because we'll clean it up. But just a little bit of that
That
top.
looks pretty good.
Look at that! You nailed it. Perfect. Awesome.
Boom.
All right, we're cruising right along here. So let's talk about the shield,
Yes.
and then we're going to see where we are in time. We'll go back. We need to do the brown wash,
Yep.
and then we'll go ahead and we'll dive in, and maybe we'll do a couple of like spot highlights and stuff on your
Yeah,
wrist to make them
yeah.
really sing. So the way we're going to approach the shield is the way that I like to do all of my Captain America shields because it's really quick, but it's very effective. We're going to do a colored metallic.
Yeah.
The
Fun.
way we're going to do that is we're going to grab a base silver, provided we can find one. There's definitely a bunch around because I was using them all last night. There we go. So we're going to use this chainmail color. So go ahead and just paint the entire shield.
This metallic. Wonderful.
Okay, and you're going to do the interior of the shield too if you feel the need to.
And the star? The whole thing.
The whole thing.
Boom.
The whole thing.
Easy.
The only thing you want to try to do is don't get silver on his arm. So you have an option here. And,
Okay.
And this is the dirty little secret about painting. So you have the inside of the shield, right?
Yep.
No one will ever see that. Like literally no one.
Yep.
Especially if you're just playing a game with them. You can leave that alone if you want to. You do not have to go in there and paint it.
I will know it's not painted and it'll drive me absolutely bonkers.
It's perfectly up to you. And you should always approach your miniatures with that in mind, right? If you can't see it, and especially like, I think this is Kevin who says this a lot, if the paintbrush can't reach it, you can't see it.
It's true.
Right? So you can always, it's right here.
I'm losing it in this dirty palette of
I
yours.
know. I'm not making it easy on you by having this like really messy palette here. But yes, just cover the entire shield with that. Do your best to not get it on his wrist or his arm or anything like that.
So what will that do if I do? It just makes it too hard to kind of get cleaned up?
No, even though you can correct your mistakes, it's always best to try not to make the mistakes.
Of course.
That's
of
all.
Course.
If you do that, it's easy. We'll grab some red and we'll just go in and fix it.
Cool.
It is a little trickier to clean up metallics over normal colors.
Okay.
And the reason being is because all paints are translucent.
Yep.
Some paints are more translucent than others. Typically, your brighter the color, the more translucent it is. So that's why yellows and bright reds are really hard for people to work with, and whites, because those paints don't have a lot of opacity. Blues, on the other hand, are bullies. Like you can cover up any color with a blue super easy.
Yeah.
And that's partly because of how the pigments are made and everything like that. Beautiful.
It's looking pretty metallic to me.
It's looking great.
What's that word that...
Metallosity.
Metallosity.
All right, so if we're good there, go ahead and clean that out, go back, and then hit the belt buckle with a little silver.
Ooh, a shiny belt?
Yeah, he's got to have a shiny belt buckle. All belt buckles are metal, you know?
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Looks like a shiny belt buckle to me.
Beautiful. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to grab out and mix up a really quick, yes, chestnut. So we're going to use a little ink tint chestnut. That's way more than I needed, but it's fine. And I'm going to grab a little bit of some brown speed paint just because I don't have any mixing medium. So we're going to make a quick wash.
Okay.
And you're just going to apply this. So exactly like you did with the speed paints.
Yep.
We're just going to quickly run this. Okay. Let's do a little bit more of this. Okay, go ahead and just, same with you did the speed paint, just go over the entire belt.
Wonderful. Even the belt buckle.
You can if you want the belt
We
buckle
don't
to look
want-
dingy.
Nope. I like the shiny.
Okay, then don't do it over that.
The Shauna.
The shine. And you don't have to be precious with this. You can slop it pretty well.
Okay, I can just glob that on there.
You don't want like a massive like bubble pool,
Okay.
but you're not going for
You
like
want
super
somewhere in
thin
the
coats.
middle.
Yeah, you want
Okay.
somewhere in the middle. And you can always push around. The great things about washes and sort of speed paints or high contrast paints in general is that even if you overload an area, you can just go back with your brush and push the paint around, right? You have a lot of working time to
Yeah.
kind of like move that extra paint around.
And I probably should have done that with the blues and red, or the blue and red, maybe.
not really.
No?
I
Okay.
mean-
Because it pulled up a little bit around the boots, and so I was like,
And it should, right? Because we have like that deep like crevice between
yes,
kind of that defining line
That's true. That's
between
right.
where the boot and the leg is. So that's pretty good about how you want to go. That's great.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so we'll let that dry. That'll give you a nice little like leather look. It gives you that worn bit of look. It gives you the shadows and the shades. So I think we're doing really great. I believe that our metallics and the shield have dried, so let's jump into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use speed paints again, just because this makes it really easy. So we're going to use some of this blood red speed paint. Now, speed paint, the way that it works, or any high contrast paint, or a wash in general we could do this with, the idea is that it's mostly translucent, right?
Okay.
So anything you put under it is going to show through.
Yep.
So when you run this speed paint over your silver, you're going to get a metallic looking like hot rod red. And that will kind of like mimic the idea that we have this vibranium Captain America shield. So go ahead and grab some of that red. And then using all of the techniques that we talked about so far, so good pinky like lock in. You can use the touch, you can use that.
Yeah.
You do the outer ring of the circle of the shield. And then you're going to go so finish that, and then the next concentric circle is white, so we're going to leave that silver. And then the one after that is red again.
Okay.
So you have 2 red circles to do.
It's so shiny.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a really quick and easy technique to get that true metallic like colored metal.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot to like really amp it up if you want to, but you know, like a little bit for the tabletop, this will look really sharp and is perfectly great for the vast majority of miniatures. Lovely.
Yeah, that looks pretty
Okay,
good.
so now you're just going to go to that third circle. So the one right before you get to the center circle with the star. And if you make a little mistake, don't worry, because we're just going to go over that silver circle again with a little bit of silver and touch it up. And it'll work perfectly fine.
All right.
Okay. So let's do the blue interior of the circle. So we
Okay.
are running out of time,
Oh,
but we're going to get there. We're going to
no.
finish.
Are we gonna finish? Oh goodness!
We're
How do you
gonna-
do this in an hour?
I know. We're
gosh.
not going to get the base done, but we're going to get Steve Rogers here to the point that like you would be happy to put him on the table. He's going to have all his colors.
He's gonna have all his colors.
So go ahead and grab that blue there.
This
which
one?
is just, yep, it's just more of the normal stuff. And then just put it around in that center circle around the star. And you might have, because we're moving a little quick here, that red might still be wet, but it's okay, let them mix.
Okay.
Okay, try, because that will just basically make it will just deepen the red and it'll
Okay.
make a nice little like edge around it.
I think right here is probably better for me just to.
Yep,
little
just dot it in.
dots.
Yep, just let it pool right in there.
All right.
Okay, well you have that blue out.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give you this one. So we're going to swap your brush for this one with the nice really tight point. I want you to take that and see where the A has the.
Yes.
I want you to just touch right in there.
Just a little dot?
Just a little dot in there and let the paint run in.
Not perfect, but
Take your thumb and do this.
over the whole thing?
Just really quick.
Oh.
You should still have some blue in there. Mm-hmm. Most of the blue should have gotten pulled off the white.
Yeah, look at that.
Perfect. So never be afraid to like wipe paint off with your fingers. Your fingers are great tools, especially if you're painting over something that's already dried.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Great tip. Go ahead and just fill in this blue a little bit. Sorry.
Yep. No, do your touch. So do your touch-ups now. Make it to where you're happy with it.
Yeah.
And then the last thing we're gonna do before we like wrap up here.
Okay. Oh no.
And this is gonna be like the real test. So you've been doing so great that I'm gonna challenge you a little bit.
No.
I know.
Okay.
I know I'm a monster.
I got this.
I'm a monster.
Got this.
I believe that you do, and that's why we're gonna do this. We're gonna do a little dark lining in the shield. Okay? And that's just to get some better separation between those circles, which is really gonna make it pop.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now, if you don't get this on the first try, that's okay.
Okay.
But we're going to use a mixture of ink and paint to kind of make like effectively something very similar in flow and kind of type to a writing ink.
Okay.
So like if you were using a pen ink, like a feather quill, it would kind of flow the same. So
Never used a quill.
the mixture of paint and ink will allow it to flow really well, but it'll also make it so that it's pretty punchy and opaque,
Okay.
which will also let it kind of fill in that stuff. So let's just see how this looks here. It's pretty good. I'm getting paint all over the place because I stuck my finger in the paint. So what happens? Okay, so I think I'm going to add just a little bit more of that. All right, so Miss Summer. Ms. Summer. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to...
I feel like you in Dallas with my thumb. It's all painted up.
I know, yeah. That's how you know you've done good work for the day. When you go home and your thumb's all covered in paint. And then people come over and they give me weird looks and they're like, why do you have your thing? Okay, so what I want you to do is we're gonna really tighten up this tip.
Okay.
And then I just want you to come through and like really carefully just touch. And ideally, we should have a flow that's gonna, so see how that just like splops right out?
We want that to...
You're gonna do the same thing, but you're gonna allow the inset detail on that shield.
Okay.
That's how it's gonna run.
Okay.
Right? So if we got our mix right, you shouldn't have to paint the circle lines. You should be able to like kind of just do touches and you'll watch as that paint like capillaries around.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So let's hope this goes right.
So the red that she used on the shield was blood red. The red on cap was slaughter red, for those asking in the chat. And yes, any kind of high contrast painting, whether it's a speed paint or a different company line of paint. What'd you do?
It's not pooling.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Let's play with it a little bit more.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can get there. If I could find, let's see, this would work. So this is one of those things where like you just really play with the consistency of the paint until it kind of works. And then also it's a little bit of trial and error.
Do you want it to be a little bit thinner?
You definitely want it to, so when you want to do this, you want it to be pretty thin.
Okay.
But you also have to play with there's that tension between like too thin doesn't cover, becomes too translucent, versus too thick doesn't run.
Yeah.
And you are going to have to work it a bit, right?
Yeah.
The easiest way to do this would be to use like an oil wash.
Okay.
That's a technique for another time. It requires a whole different set of paints, and you can replicate it with acrylics pretty well.
Okay.
But it's all about really playing with that capillary action, the way that liquids want to run and all of that stuff. So that's what we're doing here.
Cool.
If you do it a little thicker, that's okay, because we can always go back through and you can take your secondary brush, because this is really thin, and you can kind of like pull that paint that you don't want away from the sides.
Yeah.
And do a little erasing too.
I'll have a lot of cleaning up to do, but
I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is pretty clean, especially for your second miniature ever.
I'm not disappointed. I think it looks pretty good. I just, now I'm like going to stand in here for the next 2 hours and play with it and get it.
That's how it gets you.
I know.
You start to dive in. But the big thing is, and this is another really big one, is to know like to don't drive for perfect.
Right.
Drive for done.
Right.
Our favorite, Dallas always says it the best, the favorite miniature that he has of yours is the one that you just did.
Yeah.
Understand that it's a journey, and each time you finish a project, there are going to be things that you like about it. There are going to be things that you don't like about it. You're going to learn those lessons, and then you're going to move forward, and you're going to be better the next time.
Yep.
Right? I've been painting since I was 12, so that's a lot longer than I want to really talk about.
Right.
And I went through different points in my journey, right? There was a time where I was just like, I just want to get paint on it so I can play with it.
Yep.
Then I got more into like the technique and trying to be better about like, getting the details right, starting to work on faces a bit more, trying to make my colors smoother. And, I've hit plateaus where I've been like, this is where I'm at and this is where I'm staying. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I want to try something different.
Yeah.
Everybody's trip down this amazing path is different.
Too much.
The only real marker of are you seeing success is are you having fun?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And as long as whatever you're doing, you're having fun with, then you're not doing it wrong.
Right. Clean it up a smidge, which worked pretty well, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So capillary action actually works in reverse too, right? So if you take a damp brush that has no paint on it and you touch it to really thin paint, it's going to pull it up. Just like an absorbent paper towel or a sponge would for any other liquid. Yeah, that's looking really good. And so you can see how, by adding that extra definition of that line, it makes it easier for the shape to read to the eye.
Yeah.
And this is one of like the next lesson, right? Now that we've gotten comfortable with putting paint on and we've learned kind of how paint flows and we're starting to work on our brush control. The next stage of what I would do for like our kind of like journey, right? Is to start talking about dark lining.
Yep.
Because you can make amazing looking miniatures with just flat base coats if you dark line properly.
Yeah.
If you think about like every Saturday morning cartoon you ever loved, it's all flat color with really strong dark lines.
Yep.
Most interior comic book panels are like flat color with dark line. And then there's the whole comic book style of painting where you use like dark hatch lines and stuff to kind of like amp up the colors. But giving the eye the definition it needs to be able to determine individual shapes and then see the whole is huge, especially when it comes to something at this level. It's okay. You got this. You're almost there.
I'm almost there.
One circle. Let's clean it up a little bit.
We're going to get it. We're going to get this.
Just pull that up. And then I think you're going to be like right there. And then what we'll do is, see, it just comes right
Right
up.
off.
Just work it out.
Actually, just
Perfect.
push it into the
Yeah, you
crevices
just push it into the
here.
crevices. And then what you can do is you can grab a little bit of this silver, which should still be good. Let's take a look. A
Nope.
little thick. So let's add a little bit of water to it. A little bit more water to it. Maybe a little too thin now. No, that's pretty good. So go ahead and just grab some more of your silver and then just try to reline that center circle. And you can hit the star a little bit too, and then that'll be it. And we will have successfully painted a tabletop-worthy cap outside of his base in under an hour for your second miniature ever.
Yeah. Oh, yep.
That's okay.
I just go clean it up with red
Go
lighter.
back in. Well, what you can do is you can do the same thing. You can
Yep.
just take your brush and kind of pull it back up and push it around. Or you can easily add more red to it. And it'll
Which
kind of
I'll
just go
do,
away.
I think, anyway, to kind of just get a
Yeah.
nice, even coat there,
Sure.
here and there. But it's just easier to get some of that water
Yeah,
off of
just
it.
go ahead and dry out the brush a little bit because you're a little too wet.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, you want it damp, not wet.
Not wet. Okay.
So think like, you know, when your kid's got a smudge on their face and you lick your finger and you wipe off the smudge, that's the same amount of dampness that you want.
Okay. Alrighty.
All right, now the most important part of the stream. You're going to give it the beauty spin so everyone can see what you've done.
Yeah, tell me, chat, how did I do?
And then we're gonna kick this thing out, and you have a beautiful looking Captain America.
Oh
so.
my goodness, look at him. Not bad. I'm kind of impressed with myself.
I think it's pretty fantastic. So
There we go.
there you go. All right.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope that this was inspirational. I know a lot of you out there know all these techniques, but my hope is that you can show this to all of your friends or community that are trying to get into painting, and hopefully they'll pick up some tips and a bit of confidence to go out and try. And maybe you all can take on the mentorship just like I did with Summer and help bring more people into our amazing hobbies all across the globe, wherever you live. There's always people who want to paint, and it's such an amazing process for us who have been in it, that opening that door, letting more people in, seeing what we do, and starting to experience that art and that hobby. It's a fantastic time, and it's so much fun to get to teach you. Thank you, Summer, for coming, for braving the camera, coming over, and just being new to the process and being willing to explore.
Yeah.
Be sure to stick with us. We've got more exciting Ministravaganza action on the way, and Summer will be back to paint more tonight during the Hobby Hangout starting at 7.
Yep.
So we'll see you then. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.
Bye, friends.